Welcome. I'm Meg Michaelson, founder of Soul Speak Integrative Healing and a really cool brick and mortar place called Well House 1900. I'm also a painter and now finally a podcaster, which is like 10 years in the making. I'm so happy, I'm excited, and I'm really very nervous to be here, but I'm also really grateful that you came to listen. So thanks for joining me. So what is Soul Speak Podcast about? Well, as I said, it's 10 years in the making. This has been a big deal to me to get more information out there about how to live with a huge soul and a little body. Here we are, humans, in a really messy world. Humans living to the best of our ability. And we have this beautiful energy, our higher self, our soul, our spirit, that's always trying to talk to us. But most times we're really too busy to listen, trying to connect with us, to help push us to live in the beautiful ways we came here to live. This podcast is to help us, all of us, including me, push us to be more real, even when we're too tired, even when we are too broken to do so. Sometimes we take a moment or two or a few moments or 20 minutes to meditate, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we step outside and breathe during the day and notice the gorgeousness of the trees or the sky or the animals, and sometimes we're too busy. I remember as a kid, I loved going to church as a kid. Well, not always, right? But sometimes I really loved going to church. I loved the stillness of it. And I found it so funny that when we would leave church and get in the car, so many people were crabby and they wanted to get out of the parking lot as fast as they could. So that soul time was maybe an hour or maybe 50 minutes or 45 minutes, and then it would stop. That's why I want to do this podcast, because our soul time never really ends. Our soul time is meant to be with us all day long. So this podcast is going to bring up subjects that are easy. Sometimes they'll be easy to hear. Sometimes they're going to be tough. Stories that might be sad, stories that are happy, interviews with some really cool people that are trying to stay awake like I am. And the goal of the podcast is to help us live every day remembering that we are so much bigger than the problems, than the issues we face. We get to invite our soul into every experience. We get to connect our human body to the language and learn what that language is. Learn how our body is talking to us. Learn how Earth is trying to talk to us. So we're going to learn the language of our soul. And it's not always going to be serious. Soul connection is really fun sometimes. And sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it makes us really sad. But together, over these times, we're going to laugh, we're going to cry. I hope I bring up some vulnerability in each of you. I certainly know I'll be bringing that up in myself. And we're going to learn to live more real. Learn to be the same person inside as we are outside. The same beautiful person we are in our inner world as we are the face we show to others. So welcome. So who am I, and why did it take me so long to get going? Well, I'm a woman, and I've led a long life with some pretty strange experiences. I'm a mom of 5 incredibly gifted kids, each one with their own struggles. And each of their struggles has continued to give me opportunities to grow body and soul, to live more congruently. I've been in the healing field for over 25 years, working one-on-one with clients, with couples, with heads of companies that want a better understanding of the energies and personalities of those around them, with parents and with children, and sometimes even with animals. Why? Because I have an ability to read the energy of others. I've done it my whole life, even way before I understood what it was. And it can be really cumbersome. It used to be way more cumbersome than it is now, because I've learned how to have healthy boundaries. And I've learned over all of my years to really be in that space of soul and body much more often than I used to. I have had a nudge, then a pull, then an angst to bring my voice, or rather the messages that come through my voice, for quite a few years to a greater population. And life doesn't always allow the time, or perhaps we don't always prioritize our time. Perhaps the discomfort of not moving forward with a podcast finally became stronger than the fear or the lack of time. And that's oftentimes how we live as humans. We oftentimes let the fear or the other priorities, other people get in the way of listening to what our soul is asking us to do. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Today's podcast is, how do we hear the language of our soul? How do we become better listeners so we can connect more fully? Well, we do it in so many ways, and we can do it in so many ways. We can do it through our breath. And of course, we can do it through understanding that the physical pain in our body is because we're not connecting to the language of our soul. The soul sometimes is trying so hard to connect with us, but we're busy. We're too busy. We run from thing to thing. We clog our mind with all of our worries. We get in our own way all of the time to soar to new heights, to do those things that we are feeling so much fear around, even conversations from the past. But the body will always speak to us if we pay attention. So the more we're paying attention to the physical pain, that's one way the soul will speak to us, the more we can move through that physical pain. You know, we don't always recognize that there is freedom in our body. We have a lot of freedom in our body, and that's when we're in flow. That's when we feel good. But notice when you wake up in the morning and you feel a little stiffer, your neck might hurt, your lower back might hurt. Each one of those has a lesson, and we'll talk about those. And every time we pay attention to those, just by the groaning and the moaning, we're making it harder. However, if we would pause and take a breath, if we would let ourselves go into wonder, all right, what is this pain about? That's when we can hear the language of our soul. Because sometimes, as I said, we are too busy and we're not even hearing the messages. So the body takes the hit. Over time, the body needs more attention. And that pain is calling out our attention to make changes. And the more we fight the change, sometimes the more the body takes the hit. It's that resistance to change. That's fear. And the physical body tightens. And then over time, that new cell memory is born. So now we have a possibly long-term physical issue. I want to tell you a story from years ago. I was working one-on-one with a man, and because his wife urged him to come in, because that's oftentimes how it goes. And he had physical pain in his heart. They couldn't find anything, and it had been going on for a few years. And she just urged him to come in and see me. And when I connected with him, one of the first things I felt was the pain in his heart. And I said, "Are you mad at your brother? Feels like you've had a long-term unresolved issue with your brother." And he said, "Yeah, I haven't spoken to my brother since we were teens." Yet all of that time, with all of that unforgiveness, he held that pain in his heart. And the pain was urging him to stop and slow down and let the body talk. Did he need me? No. If he would have allowed himself to open up to the language of the soul and the possibility that our body has cell memory and that our body wants to be healthy and that our body is holding emotional pain because the body holds emotional pain, he would have gotten that message himself. So just starting that process for him of reacquainting himself with that old pain, knowing it was stored in that heart and causing him that physical disability, And the more he opened up to it over time and started to actually reconnect with his brother, and they talked through, guess what happened to that pain? It dissipated. Did it ever come back? Sure. Why? Because now there's that memory buildup there, and it really takes us a while. So over time, because it takes time to build that pain in the body, it also takes time to release it. But the soul wanted him to forgive his brother. And that's how we get that freedom. That's how we get that flow. So what happens with us humans? That we don't always move forward with the nudges of spirit. And in this case, it was to forgive. Taking that same, we could lay that blueprint out on every single part of our body, but every single part of our body has a different message from our soul. And of course, then we personalize it to our own lifetime, our own woundings, our own long-term dis-eases. What about not moving into dreams and goals? What does that do? Hurts our self-esteem, which is the third chakra, which is the gut. It's our engine. This morning, I almost canceled today's recording because I'm still feeling so much fear around this. I've taught in front of large groups of people for many years in many places, but for some reason, this is more scary to me. I felt so much angst that I was feeling sick in my stomach, and then my jaw got tight. When I was thinking about all the reasons I felt so unprepared, a blue jay flew right into my patio door. Smack, right into my patio door. Looked out there, the bird was okay. It was stunned and then it flew away. But the blue jay represents soaring to new heights. The blue jay is that conduit between the higher self and the earth body. I needed that reminder. I allowed myself a moment to pause and reflect on, oh my gosh, I got to look up blue jay quick. What was that? But it got me out of my fear. It got me out of the block I was holding. I've got this cool book that I read from about animals, and the blue jay assists you when you need to be more daring, when you need to connect to the divine. Now, of course, some people will say, oh, that was just coincidence. Maybe. But those are the experiences we can have consistently when we are allowing ourselves to be open to our beautiful soul that's trying to talk to us. Plus, I was feeling restriction here in my throat. I was feeling restriction in my gut. Those are two areas that are connected. So it was time for me to relax, breathe it out, let go. I allowed myself to take a breath and surrender. And, the ability to move into our dreams and our goals, that sometimes feels so much bigger than just being normal or being self. However, if we choose to continue to put those nudges on hold, the lack begins to become so great that it does hurt our physical body. It hurts our self-esteem. Our digestion takes a hit. Our jaw takes a hit. We might start judging other people because we're not moving forward with our dreams. We might start blaming other people. Why? Because we're feeling low about self. That's our self-esteem. That's our third chakra. We're not honoring the inner calling. And in order to make it feel better, even temporarily, we start blaming outside of ourselves or judging others, which now hurts our jaw. And then we can recognize, I'm allowing the doubt to take hold and it's holding me back. So the body is going to tell you all the time, pay attention. I wonder how many of this audience has struggled with sciatica, lower back pain. Take a minute and think about that. During that time, if you can look back in your life, during that time, Are you also struggling with financial worry? A lot of people struggle with financial worry even when they don't need to. It's just the habit that they've gotten into. And that will affect that lower back, time and money. Why? Because that second chakra, which is hip to hip, lower back, lower belly, that is the area of balance, abundance versus scarcity, masculine versus feminine, giving and receiving. And when we struggle with something like sciatica, pay attention to the thoughts that are going through your head. I remember a time when I was married and we had 3 kids at the time. I didn't have all my 5. And we were struggling financially. And I didn't know the language of the soul back then. I doubled down to my knees on multiple times because my sciatica hurt so bad. And had I known what I know now, did I have legitimate money worries then? Sure. However, does it really help us to worry about the money? Does that actually serve our highest good at all? No, it doesn't. It gets in the way of the solutions that could come when spirit starts to talk to you. But I didn't know then what I know now. So now, if I'm worried about time or money, I might feel the restriction in the lower back. Absolutely. And then I breathe it out. Because the more we allow the breath to happen and the restriction to ease, the more we're allowing the messages from spirit to come through. Solutions. Because there's always solutions. Every single problem has a solution. Sometimes it's many solutions. But we want to connect inside. We want to connect to the physical body. We want to connect to the restriction. And once we do and breathe through it, now we just open that conduit and we're letting the language of the soul come through. Might not come through that second, but if you stay in that space as long as you can, you'll get those ahas. So on a soul level, we set these things up, my belief system, before we come, these lessons. And sometimes these lessons are really, really hard and really, really heart-wrenching. And the longer we choose not to listen, the bigger the pain grows, the more heart-wrenching the pain becomes. In order to grow into our whole self, the beautiful life we are meant to live, we need to listen every day. We need to listen to the body. We need to calm the body, get into the breathing. Listen to the birds when they smack into your window. Listen with our hearts. What do our hearts want? Quiet our minds. Allow the nudges. Write them down. Because maybe we can't fulfill that right now, but we can put it in our file for later. But if the nudge keeps coming, then it is time now. And we don't want to let that file get too big. A few other areas of the body I want to talk about. The throat, the jaw. This is a big one for people. This is called our 5th chakra. This is where we communicate, where we are in the balance of letting the flow out, of listening as much as speaking. Although I heard from a wise man years ago that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth because we're supposed to listen more than we speak. And I take that further and say we're supposed to listen to our inner voice much more than we speak. So this area is best when it's in balance of listening and sharing, of allowing ourselves to let that beautiful flow out. I talked about the 2nd chakra and with that scarcity or abundance mindset. It's also our creative center. So everything that we create in that beautiful area of our body, that is the juicy area, that 2nd chakra. That is the area of sexuality and sensuality and pleasure and living in the five senses, sensuality. So we get our ideas and then we either bring them out to fruition or they get stuck here. And what happens when they're stuck? What happens when we are not fulfilling our destiny? This gets tight. And we start to get resentful and angry at those people around us or angry at ourselves. So allowing ourselves to be in the flow here, drop the jaw, surrender. When we feel like we're starting to judge other people too much, when we feel like we're judging ourselves too much, this will get tight. You might be grinding at night. Now, there's a lot of us that are control freaks, and we don't even like help all the time because we got to do it ourselves. And the more we do it ourselves, the more we are in that sense of control, the more we are keeping out all of the beauty and grandiosity and the cool things our soul can teach us and lead us through, which is way faster than our human mind can ever come up with. And so when you feel this tight, it's time to surrender. Drop the jaw. I love this massage where you take your fingers and you massage on the jaw hinge outside your ears. And if it's really tight, don't do it hard. We don't need to hurt ourselves anymore. Just do it soft and gentle. And then drag your fingers down all the way to the chin. Let this area have more ease, or do a forward fold. I call that a brain dump. Just bend over, let your head and your neck release. And then when you stand up, you feel refreshed. You might get another aha. Because we're never in control, and the more we try to control, the less we're in co-creation, the tighter the jaw, the tighter the bite, the tighter the neck will become. This fifth chakra in Sanskrit, in that beautiful chakra system, is the area of surrender. Surrender. What does it mean to surrender? It means to let go. To let go and let God, regardless of what you call your higher power. Let go and let that divine wisdom come in. Let go and get out of the way. Let go and let others help. Let go and watch the healing. I used to have such a tight jaw. I work with many, many, many clients that have really tight jaws and TMJ. And I notice I wake up, if I'm stressed about something, I wake up with a tighter jaw. Relax it, release it. Roll a towel under your neck, lay on the ground. But let the connection happen. And we can't let the connection happen if we continue feeling the restriction. So breathe out, inhale, breathe out. So I want to leave you with something today. And we'll talk more about the body in the future. Every week, I'm going to give you a tool or a mindfulness practice. Because if we make even one small change towards that congruency between body and soul, you will notice how your life improves. You'll notice that your moodiness might shift into more ease. You'll notice that your body will have less restriction. I have way less pain than I used to in my body. So I want you to just take some breaths. Inhale through your nose, down your throat, down the spine. With the next inhale, lift your shoulders to your ears. Exhale, drop them down and back. Getting that breath down the spine all the way to the tailbone and out hip to hip. It's our anchor. Our bones hold so much of our history. So our bones really need a lot of our breath work. Inhale through the nose, down the throat, down the spine, into the tailbone, out hip to hip. and let it all go. I'm Meg Michaelson, and I look forward to seeing you next week on Soul Speak. Hey, listeners, thanks again for joining me. If you want to learn more about me, services I offer, who I am, please check out my website, megmichaelson.com. Also, there you can join my newsletter. I do the best job I can to send it out monthly, no guarantees. Follow me on Instagram and YouTube. Thanks again for coming. I'll see you next time.